WingMen. Right. Well, it all started for me many years ago, so 2009, 10, when I first met Martin, and he came to the studio with a band called Case, Croydon band. They came here to record an EP called Grow or Die, and in that band also was a guy called Robert Brooke, rock and roll robot, who played guitar and still plays guitar for Johnny Moped. So we recorded the Case EP and didn't hear anything from Martin for a few years until he phoned up one day and wanted to come and record some songs, and he had some guys with him, Jan, Simon, Charlie, who were the foundation of the Weird Things. So we were recording the Weird Things album, 10 Digit Freak, and while we were recording the album, Martin asked me to join the band as guitarist. So while I was in the Weird Things, Johnny Moped asked me to produce a single for them, Ain't No Rock and Roll Rookie, which I did, and that was quite successful, and so they then asked me to produce some tracks for their album, It's a Real Cool Baby. So all that was released, all sounding tickety-boo, and the Weird Things were supporting Johnny Moped on quite a few gigs. So then Dave Burke decided to leave Johnny Moped, and Marty Love stepped in and took over the job of playing drums in Johnny Moped. So again, playing in both bands, Johnny Moped and the Weird Things. And it was around this time that we started work on the Weird Things second album, Code 533. So I'd finished work on the Code 533 album, and that was all being packaged up and ready for release, when Johnny Moped asked me to produce their next album, Lowergate Your Mind. Now, on that album was a track called the Black Witch Climax Blues Band Genetic Breakdown, bit of a long title, which was all about the formation of Johnny Moped, the early days of Johnny Moped, when Captain Sensible was in the band. So I suggested to Slimy Toad, the other guitarist in Johnny Moped, that it might be a good idea if they got Captain Sensible to play guitar on the track. So Toad asked Captain if he would oblige to play guitar, and Captain said yes. So he provided some recordings, guitar and backing vocals, which we used on the Black Witch Climax Blues Band track for Johnny Moped. So Captain Sensible, being a bit of a fan of Johnny Moped, asked them to support the Damned on their next tour. So Johnny Moped were on tour with the Damned, and around that time Paul Gray and Captain Sensible were thinking about doing a second Sensible Grey Cells album. And on the tour with Johnny Moped, they spotted Marty Love playing drums for Johnny Moped and thought, he's the man we want. So the Sensible Grey Cells, consisting of Captain Sensible, Paul Gray and Marty Love, are all in the studio recording the Sensible Grey Cells second album, Get Back Into the World. And everyone's having great fun, but it's becoming quite clear during the recording process that the band isn't going to be a live band. There were no gigs in the pipeline, and I don't think anyone was really interested, or Captain wasn't interested in doing any gigs at that time outside of the Damned. And Martin was very disappointed because he wanted to get out and do some gigs with the Sensible Grey Cells. The recording of the Sensible Grey Cells album completed just as COVID hit and the country went into lockdown. Next. So now the whole world has gone into lockdown, and Paul and Marty are discussing the idea of maybe forming another band that would be up for gigging. Martin contacts Lee Hegarty to see if he would be interested in contributing, which he is. And then I think Lee suggests Baz Warm from the Stranglers as a lead vocalist. So Baz is approached and he is agreeable to the idea as well. So this is the first smidging of an idea of WingMen. The first snippets of WingMen that I heard was when Marty sent me over some guitars and vocal stems to listen to and asked me if I'd be interested in getting involved. And as soon as I heard them, I said, yes, this sounds great. And he told me who was involved, and I said, it's even better. Of course. While Baz and Paul and Lee are writing songs and recording guitar parts at home and vocals in their home studios, Marty is coming into the studio and recording the drum parts for it, which is a roundabout way of doing it, because normally when you're recording you normally lay the foundations of the drums first, but we were doing it during lockdown, so it was a case of doing the guitars and the bass and vocals first, and then Martin adding the drums afterwards. But once it was all mixed and edited and everything, it all sounded great and the tracks were sounding really good. They then, after lockdown, came down to the studio and we sat together listening through to the mixes, picking holes in it, sorting out, making different level changes, and generally having fun in the studio.
Behind our masks, we're perfectly ordinary people.
So as far as WingMen are concerned, the rest is history. I started playing bass with Tenpole Tudor, and then I played with Pearl Harbor, Paul Simone's wife, did an album with her. Then a bass in King Kurt.
When you're in, you complain when you're out. You complain when we whisper, you complain when we shout. When will you listen? Stop fucking about.
Guitar tech for Bill Carter and the Screaming Blue Messiahs. Ran a record label for a while and got into songwriting and production.
This one goes to 11.